Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. This is a PBS News article and also video on President Trump. You can hear him talk about upcoming arrests and indictments. This is the clip from Davos where he tells the world that it wasn't fair and square 6 years ago. Hit subscribe. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel to my super chat. Thank you so much for your support. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right after this. Hit subscribe there and check out the latest video there on H.A. Goodman's other channel. Let's go.
We are thousands of miles away, separated by a giant ocean. It's a war that should have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be.
People will soon be prosecuted. Now, we already have voting machine company charged in Philippine bribery scandal. Department of Justice, Reuters, U.S. prosecutors charge voting tech company Smartmatic. DOJ indicts voting machine company Smartmatic. And you have Dominion sold to GOP official. I don't know if anybody had any of the wonderful morally superior had that in the cards, but let's continue. Listen to this again.
Everybody now knows that. They found out. Started if the separated by a giant ocean. It's a war that should have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It was a rigged election. You can't have rigged elections. You need strong borders, strong elections, and ideally a good press. I always say it. Strong borders, strong elections, free, fair elections, and a fair media. The media is terrible. It's very crooked. It's very biased, terrible. But someday it'll straighten out because it's losing all credibility. Think of it. When I went in a landslide, a giant landslide, won all 7 swing states, won the popular vote, won everything, and they only get negative press. That means that it has no credibility. And if they're going to get credibility, they're going to have to be fair. So you need a fair press. But you also need those other elements. And I inherited a terrible, terrible situation.
Wait just a second. We have.
So you hear him, ladies and gentlemen, talk about imminent arrests. And The Guardian, DOJ investigating unfounded claims Venezuela helps steal 2020. The Guardian, Trump hits support for fringe theory that Venezuela rigged. Okay. And you already have people from a voting machine company that Democrats defended who are already arrested and charged. Again, Dominion is sold to a GOP official. You can't make this up. Hit subscribe, and also to my super chat, Paul Bartlett, thank you so very much. And to my viewers around the world, thank you for watching. Scaffman, thank you in England. Thank you so very much for watching. Thanks, everybody. Let's continue. He reiterates that right here, President Trump.
Yeah, please.
Sir, you're going to have Vladimir Zelensky here this week. What is your message at this stage of the war for him? And shy of tomahawks...
To who is it?
For Zelensky.
Yeah.
And shy of tomahawks for Ukraine. Are you considering other options, and will you speak with Vladimir Putin about
No, we're looking at other options. We are. President Zelensky's coming in. I'm not a fan of the war. I'm not a fan of the way it started. It should have never happened. It wouldn't have started if I were president. The election was rigged. And because of that, we lost a lot of lives have been lost because of that war. Not American lives, but if I can save a lot of lives, that's why I'm in it. I want to save lives. I've had 8 wars. The Prime Minister of Pakistan got up the other day, said so beautifully, says, you saved millions of lives. He told that to a group of people right in this office. He said the president saved millions of lives. And I think what he's referring to is the fact that that would have been with India nuclear war. That was getting very close. 7 planes, they don't talk about it, but 7 aircraft were shot down. In fact, we have the new ambassador to India right here. They're well represented. You better represent us, not them, okay? But Sergio's going to do a great job. He's going to do a great job. But no, we'll be talking about the war with him, and we'll.
And here's another example in the past couple of months where President Trump is telling the world, yeah, it wasn't fair, and we're investigating.
Discuss the Tomahawk missiles? Did you just discuss?
Well, we talked about it a little bit, didn't say much, but I do say to you, we need Tomahawks for the United States of America, too. We have a lot of them, but we need them. I mean, we can't deplete for our country. So, they're very vital. They're very powerful. They're very accurate. They're very good, but we need them, too. So I don't know what we can do about that.
Mr. President, why do you think a second meeting with Putin? Why do you think a second meeting with Putin now will yield different results?
Well, I think Alaska actually set a stage, and that wasn't very long ago, but it set a stage. You have to understand, I came into this situation. I didn't start this war. This is a Biden deal, and I came into it, and it was a mess. It could have led to World War III. In my opinion, this could have led to World War III. That won't happen, but it could have. So I came in, this war was raging. When I left, this wasn't even a thought. For 4 years, nobody talked about it. I spoke to President Putin about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye, but there was never going to be doing anything like this. And this all went because of some really bad decisions that were made. And look what you have. You have millions of people dead. You have just a horrible, horrible situation. I'm doing it to save souls. That's all I'm doing it for. I'm not doing it for us. We have an ocean between us. I'm doing it also to help Europe. They want to have it ended, but they're unable to do it. I'm able to do it. So I think we'll be successful. We'll save a lot of lives. It should have been done. Should have never started. This would have never happened if the election weren't rigged.
And that's true. That's true. There was no invasion under Trump. There was no invasion under Trump. There's zero rebuttal to that. What's the rebuttal? Oh, yes, there was. Oh, there would have been. No. There was no invasion under Trump. There was an invasion under Biden and Democrats, the same people that Putin was supposed to fear. But here's one survey, Axios. This was in 2022. Only a slim majority, 55%, accept Joe Biden as having legitimately won the 2020 election, down slightly from 58% a year ago. So this was before they kicked Biden out of contention. When they kicked Biden out of contention, they amplified and bolstered every claim President Trump made. And Paul Bartlett, thank you so very much to my super chat. Thank you. Paul, thank you so very much as always. But this is important, ladies and gentlemen. This is, and it's not like, it took me a little while to find this. Okay, it's out there, but it took me, it's not easily found, this quote. Check it out. This was just the other day.
It's a war that should have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It was a rigged election. Can't have rigged elections.
People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. Now we have the election office raided by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and Tulsi Gabbard was there. Is there a link to Maduro? I'm not saying there is, categorically. I'm saying that very likely there's a foreign policy component, because the Director of National Intelligence, which oversees the Central Intelligence Agency, the NSA, the FBI, and every other intelligence agency, was there. So there could very well be the link that The Guardian tried to downplay. And so Nicolas Maduro could very well be working on a plea deal or addressing the issues. He was accused by Smartmatic of cheating, by the way, in 2017. So we've talked about this. I have 2 videos today, this morning, that talks about that. Check this out.
That were searched this week. We taped this interview earlier in the week. Take a look. Let's bring in FBI Director Kash Patel, who joins me now. Director Patel, I want to start with the news, and the news is out of Fulton County, Georgia. I know this is an ongoing investigation, but the FBI on Wednesday did obtain a search warrant to look at this Fulton County election hub to access physical ballots, electronic ballot images, and voter rolls. Is there anything you can share at this moment?
Hey, Kaylee, it's great to be with you. Look, like any other investigation, the FBI follows the facts and the law, and President Trump and the Attorney General have given us clear mandate to reduce crime in this country and investigate anything that rises to the level of probable cause. And what we did, the FBI, with our partners at the Department of Justice and the AG, let out on an extensive effort to conduct interviews and an investigation, which led us to a probable cause to be delivered to a judge who found probable cause for us to execute that search warrant, which you saw and the nation saw yesterday. And what we did was what we do in any other investigation. We went in there, we followed the rules of the search warrant. The FBI and the DOJ went in and collected numerous pieces of evidence that the judge authorized us to collect. And what we're going to do next is go through the voluminous amounts of information collected and continue our investigation. At this point, there's not much more I can say publicly because we have to go through a lot more material, but it was predicated upon a finding of probable cause by a judge in Georgia.
Well, we'll continue to follow it. I want to move to the fraud that we have seen in Minnesota. Saturday in America has been all over this. Interviewed David Hoke multiple times, who was in that Nick Shirley video that drew the nation's attention to fraud in Minnesota. How long has the FBI under President Trump been on this?
With President Trump's leadership, he's been on this since day one. And let me rewind you back to the spring or summer of last year where I was on the ground in Minnesota myself. And I know you and your viewers care, as we do, deeply about protecting our children. And the first place we started, the FBI that is what we call with this program, Feeding Our Futures. And we discovered a monumental fraud in Minnesota where individuals in the community and outside the community were fleecing the government for hundreds of millions of dollars. And last summer, we arrested, with our partners at DOJ, 75 individuals pursuant to federal indictments. So that was some of the work that catapulted us into this large-scale fraud investigation that has now captured the nation, and we have not stopped. We've been there since day one, and we're going to continue until we meet it all out, and we've surged resources in Minnesota to make sure that no one swipes money from children or any other American, and no government official, if any participated in this, will be apprehended.
Did your predecessor, we know Chris Wray of the Biden administration, was he looking into this?
I can't speak for my predecessor. I can just tell you the work we've done under President Trump, which is historic levels of reduction in crime across the country. And that includes fraud, not just in Minnesota, but around the country. And it includes heavily investigating and following public corruption for those in elected office that break the law to rob America of their taxpayer dollars.
I want you to listen to this for a moment. This is Governor Tim Walz. He has said, that he was cheated. He has admitted that fraud took place.
So there's an international component to a lot of what's going on. And I have always consistently stated it's a Democratic Party scandal. And I've always consistently stated not to virtue signal or not to seem like a good person or what. I have stated consistently, God bless the Somali community in Minnesota and in Somalia and around the world. God bless them. There are veterans, U.S. veterans, business owners, good people, families, teachers, doctors. And so this is a Democratic Party scandal because you have different groups in different blue cities run by Democrats that are committing fraud throughout the country. There's an international component, and it's linked to the Democratic Party. So you have Maduro potentially, according to The Guardian, linked to 2020. Dominion being sold to a GOP official should tell you all you need to know. That should tell you all you need to know about what took place. You would think that they wouldn't want to sell the company with $787 million from Fox News. Who knows what the actual settlement amount was, whether that was just the initial, who knows whether it's below that amount. Why would they sell Dominion to a Republican official, a conservative? It's now called, I think, Liberty Vote. So Democrats and media were, as always, indignant beyond belief, as always. They didn't think Bernie Sanders was cheated, and then you fast forward. Anyone who said anything was, anyone of stature who said something that wasn't, they lied and defamed Trump for 10 years about Russia. Being like the Russiagate hoax was just endless defamation. But God forbid anyone said anything about certain companies, and they were sued. They were sued. What the media wanted to do was sue people into oblivion. But after Biden was kicked out, after Dominion is sold, and now Smartmatic now has people arrested and charged for bribery in another country, former President Nicolas Maduro was arrested. You now have, and Biden kicked to the curb politically, you now have a completely different ballgame. Okay? I don't think that you would have barely 50% of Americans that would agree or admit that it's fair and square. And when Democrats say it's fair and square, understand something. They would never admit. They would say, "Where's the proof?" As media and others actively suppress any possibility of a true investigation, which is finally taking place. But let's continue here. This is interesting because this is maybe potentially linked to, this type of fraud. Who knows? It could be linked. There could be links in terms of this international type of fraud. Whether it was possibly 2020 or what's going on in Minnesota and other states, there's an international and foreign policy and intel component here that Democrats will never admit to.
But he's trying to have it both ways. This is him on, I guess, what they call MS Now. Listen to this.
You mentioned this fraud investigation and the reason that they're here. Is there anything you think, when you look back, you could have done differently to prevent them from showing up and doing what they're doing here?
No, they were coming anyway. It was all make believe that we'd been at it. Every state had this.
You could have done differently to prevent them from showing up and doing what they're doing here?
No, they were coming anyway. It was all make believe that.
How could somebody who speaks in such a salt of the earth, this man, Tim Walz, speaks with such salt of the earth integrity. How could he have the antithesis of what he sounds like in terms of salt of the earth goodness? And and then the Democrats, they picked Tim Walz like he reminds Trumpers of themselves. No, isn't that right? He looks like a Trumper, doesn't he? He speaks like one too, doesn't he? This would be perfect. The Trumpers will just flock towards Tim Walz because they're mindless. Well, that's what our surveys say. That's what our $20,000 a week consultants say. They can't be wrong, can they? 3 months later, a monumental, catastrophic loss. It was actually worse than Clinton's loss. If you look at it in aggregate, Biden was forced out after he won his primary, and then they lost every battleground state. Every battleground, Virginia, every battleground state. So this was a cataclysmic loss for the Democrats. They can have the special elections. They can have Congress. It's actually better for Trump if they have Congress. Don't think I won't be happy if Republicans win and keep Congress, but it's better for Trump or better for Vance and Rubio because they'll impeach Trump 30 times. They will have no signature piece of legislation they want to pass. Zero. They have zero vision. And, but anyway, up until November of this year, you're going to see arrests, indictments, a whole lot of, from conspiracy statutes. The Clintons face indictment, ladies and gentlemen. It's 10 years too late for Hillary, but they don't want to because of the servers, but they don't want to testify. And of course, it's a Trump scandal, the EP files. No, it's a Democratic Party scandal. He's a Democratic donor, and the Clintons will not testify. And it's a bipartisan vote. Democrats voted. Not only to have them testify, but voted for contempt of Congress. Now it goes from James Comer's committee to the House floor, and Mike Johnson should do that sooner rather than later. Then it goes to the DOJ for a grand jury indictment. I don't think people understand that. I mean, does everybody understand the chat? Does everybody understand? Once it goes to the House floor, it then goes to the DOJ, then the grand jury. Within 2-3 months, Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro were sent to prison. So this is happening, folks, and it's not just that. There's the conspiracy statute indictments with Brennan, Comey, and others that Clinton will face almost certainly. Then there's fraud in Minnesota, and there's probably fraud in every other blue state.
That we've been at it. Every state had this.
I mean, what we're seeing in Minnesota seems unique, or is it make-believe and this is happening in
Hello, my name is Adam Ferrari.
state jurisdiction?
Well, thankfully, every state does not have this problem. I don't have another statistic to give you where we arrested 75 individuals in one summer for hundreds of millions of dollars of fraud related to a program that's supposed to feed malnourished children in underprivileged families. So I don't know what he's talking about. That's pushing it under the rug. And also, a fraud of this size, there should be state and local authorities alerting the FBI early on and participating in our investigation. We went up there and did it with the federal authorities and the DOJ. And we've continued to ask those in Minnesota and around the country of any information on this to let us know, because this investigation is not over. The size of the fraud continues to be exposed, and there will be more arrests coming.
Final question on this. A DHS source has told us that they have located $700 million in bulk cash by Somali couriers going through the Minnesota airport. By way of comparison, just $3 to $4 million goes per year through JFK and DFW. That number was over a 2-year period. Is this something that you're looking into, or is this solely in DHS's purview?
This is in DHS's purview, but of course, like any great interagency partnership, Secretary Noem and I and Tom Homan have a great partnership, and we're going to continue to collect information, and whether it falls into their lane of investigation or ours, we're going to make sure we put the resources necessary to expose those involved.
So I want to get to the great work of what the FBI does, and it's fighting crime. And by all means, you have been a resounding success. Homicides down to the lowest rate since 1900. Never thought I would see this.
So President Trump, the law and order president, homicides are at their lowest rate in, 100 years, 120 years, 126 years. But this is very important to understand, ladies and gentlemen, okay? This is very important political analysis. I'm not being belligerent or malicious. Homicides plummeting is not important to the Democratic political philosophy or ideology. They don't care. It's not important at all. It's not important in the least bit. Just like it wasn't important that ICE was deporting people under Biden. Similar to that, it's not important, but it's a little bit different than that, because now they dislike ICE. It's not like they're going to be upset at this statistic, but it's not an issue. So when President Trump says, hey, there are people here, okay, perhaps the vast majority are wonderful people, but if there are people here that are here illegally, and they're committing the most heinous, vile, monstrous, brutal, evil crimes against innocent Americans, and they shouldn't be here. They should, and any country wouldn't allow the individual in. So there's a vetting process. It's called the citizenship the process of becoming a citizen. And Biden lets 8, 10, 12 million human beings, let's say 99.9%, are absolutely beautiful and wonderful, which is probably true. But then you have individuals who shouldn't be here. If President Trump wants to remove these individuals, Democrats don't care about that. It's not part of their worldview. There's no rebuttal to that. It is true. They just simply don't care. They think that having no borders is moral. They have a very interesting, some would say warped view of morality. Bernie Sanders being cheated in a fake and phony primary, Biden being cheated after he won a fake and phony primary, then they pontificate about democracy. Oh my God, his words are vile, and they get indignant when Trump speaks. They get angry. They have a visceral reaction. But when you explain, hey, you know what? There's an individual who shouldn't be in this country and did the most unspeakable, evil, brutal, evil, disgusting act to somebody. Oh, well, but it just happens. Ooh, shrug shoulders. It's like, oh, you're not upset with that, but you're upset because ICE is actually deporting that person? Or because Trump talked about it? And then they try to say, oh, well, this is demonizing immigrants. No, it's not demonizing immigrants. Immigrants are beautiful people. Melania Trump is an immigrant. There are millions upon millions of immigrants who did it the right way. And I think that President Trump offered Dreamers citizenship. I think Dreamers should become citizens. And Democrats, as always, said no in his first term. But let's continue.
I was in Administration 1, the Summer of Love, they called it, and now look at these numbers. Mass shootings down to the lowest point in 20 years. I found out today, school shootings, the lowest point in 5 years. And as a mother, I'm very grateful to the work you guys have done here. I found this headline, New York City. There was supposed to be a school shooting. A young man posted on Instagram that he was going to shoot up a school. Within 2 hours, the FBI was in that New York City school, located a weapon in his backpack, and neutralized the threat. What do you credit to bringing down school shootings, something that has befuddled both the right and the left, but clearly not befuddled the Kash Patel?
Ever since Columbine, those two monsters opened up the floodgates of copycats. And you have people who want to, there's some kind of emotional or psychological or spiritual phenomenon since Columbine. And it existed before Columbine, but where an individual actually wants, it's almost like their soul has left them and they just, they actually want to be remembered as the most insidious, evil, nefarious monster. They want to be remembered as somebody who hurt as many people in humanity as possible. There's some kind of phenomenon where people have such zero spirituality or zero meaning or zero link to the world around them. And their anger is they want to show the world how angry they are, and they want to show the world how much rage they have. And whether it's a young person at a school or you see it, elsewhere, they want to, and this is also it's also a spiritual issue. Also, people would laugh at that. From the morally superior, all spiritual. Oh, what's that? That's ridiculous. But it's almost like a person's spirit has left or has been I don't want to say taken over, but because these are human beings. And human beings can commit the worst atrocities, but it's a phenomenon that nobody really looked into. Since Columbine, nobody has looked into it. It's, oh my God, can we just erase the Second Amendment? And it's like, well, criminals won't abide by it. Criminals actually don't care if you erase the Second Amendment because they're criminals and they won't follow the law. But anyway, there's some kind of spiritual component to the evil. There's some kind of the monster that wants a mass atrocity wants to unleash upon the world the anger or hurt that the person feels. Okay? Different from other deviant monsters because they wouldn't necessarily enjoy that type of evil prior to experiencing either the hurt or rejection or anger or rage. And then the only way they can, it seems that these monsters, let's just call them monsters, the only way that they express that is through a mass atrocity. And it's some kind of copycat where, okay, after Columbine, you saw that with so much regularity and frequency the past, 27 or so years. And so nobody's really looked into that. Certainly not the spiritual component, God forbid.
FBI.
$15 billion.
Well, the credit belongs to President Trump for backing law enforcement and giving us the resources and saying we're going to protect our children. You're right. It was a great effort in New York with the FBI and the NYPD and our private sector partners who are also very important to giving us tips and information about it. And yes, we thwarted it there in New York. Similarly, we did the same thing in Indiana and in Texas. And thankfully, we were able to thwart these school shootings before they happened. And the FBI remains very vigilant in our tip lines. We've had 1,600 tips related to school shootings and possible school shootings last year alone, and we were able to work with our state and local partners. That's the key, Kaylee. We go out there with the FBI, we get with the cops on the ground and our interagency and DOJ partners and say, we are going to prevent this at all costs. And one of the things that we are doing is highlighting the work we've done to protect our children. Just this past year alone under President Trump's leadership, we have found and identified 6,000 missing kids. That's up 22%. We have arrested, the FBI, 1,700 child predators. That's up 10%. And the following is maybe some of the most important.
Notice how Democrats don't care that all of these vile, monstrous individuals are being arrested. Isn't that interesting?
Impressive work the FBI is doing. You are very familiar with the nihilistic, violent, extremist community online, preying on our kids, forcing them to maim and mutilate themselves, and even sometimes commit suicide. We are up 490% in the number of FBI arrests for the NVE community, and specifically that 764 network that targets our children. We're up over 30% in arrests related to the 764 network. Wow. And the credit goes to the interagency and the men and women in the FBI working together with DOJ to bring these perpetrators to justice.
Wow, that's impressive. And as someone who, routinely covers these school shootings on Outnumbered every day at noon, and they continue to come, I want to thank you. That's a great service to our nation. I know we only have a few moments, but
so if you want to make a correlation, there's all these absurd correlations Democrats make, but I'm not saying that atheism caused this. I'm not, okay. But the rise of atheism in the United States of America has correlated to the rise of school shootings. This is a fact. There's a correlation. You can have a chart and you can see the correlation. And this lack of, it doesn't matter what religion you are, especially if you're a young person, it is a good thing to have that kind of foundation, to believe that there's something higher, that there's something that, will judge your actions in the afterlife, as opposed to just the here and now. So when you have that peer pressure and people are, bullying you, and everyone goes through that, if you have that grounded, those roots, that grounded, base, you can withstand that better, at least. I'm not saying it won't hurt. I'm not saying it doesn't hurt to be bullied or to be, insulted. Everyone has gone through that growing up. But if you have that spiritual foundation of any religion, I'm not focusing on any specific religion, but if you have that spiritual foundation, that helps. That helps. And if you have that society that also kind of acknowledges or respects or admires that spiritual foundation, not just of any particular religion, that also helps. But when your religion is Democrat, no good. When your religion is liberal or conservative, that's your religion, no good. But now we've seen the Democratic Party pontificate about it's become this atheistic political religion where people they will disown friends and family because of a difference in political views. That is akin to heresy or blasphemy. They have an indoctrinated, they're like zealots when it comes to politics, but they keep losing. They just have the entire media, but so it's like they don't just simply accept, we're the baddies. They'll never accept that. But anyway, let's continue.
Just two other things I want to get to quickly. You discovered a trophy there at the FBI. Arctic Frost was the operation under Biden that targeted Republicans. This trophy is so bizarre to me. The picture's up on the screen. It says AF Arctic Frost. They seem to be celebrating things with insignias. What is this that you found?
All this trophy shows is that the prior administration under Biden fully weaponized the system of justice. You know, you and I know all too well about Russiagate. And this FBI under President Trump exposed Arctic Frost, which was the improper and, if not unlawful, surveillance of members of Congress and other people. And the folks that were in the FBI, and let me make one thing clear, these people are no longer here. They've been terminated. We found them, we exposed them, and we got rid of them. Instead of focusing on violent crime and protecting our children and protecting our national security, they were too busy making trophies.
So you have, like I said, numerous individuals, Smartmatic, arrested, indicted for bribery. Could be linked to the DOJ's arrest of Nicolas Maduro. That's very interesting. We talked about that on the uploads today. Check this out.
We're on site at a Fulton County election office in Georgia, where they are conducting a search. David Spunt's got more details for us on this developing story. David?
Hi, Sandra. This is a satellite office for the Fulton County Elections Office. The FBI Atlanta press office confirming this, not giving many details, saying that the FBI is executing a court-authorized law enforcement action. No other details at this time, but we do know via sources a judge signed off on this warrant, allowing these agents, as you see them, enter this building to take items from the inside. Now, we're told that this is a sealed matter before the court, meaning details are now limited. Now, agents are looking at documents, phones, computers. We are told via multiple sources this is related to the 2020 presidential election. Now, we don't know specifically what agents are taking to the FBI lab, items that may eventually become part of a federal case. You may remember President Trump was charged in Fulton County with trying to overturn the 2020 election results. That's Brad Raffensperger right there. He is the Secretary of State of Georgia. That is the Fulton County District Attorney, Fani Willis. Now, Raffensperger spoke to President Trump back in early 2021, and Trump said that he wanted to find some 11,000 votes to help win the election. Raffensperger said that he felt pressure from Trump. Willis then took Donald Trump to trial. That didn't happen. In 2023, she said that her prosecution was all buttoned up, ready to go, but it was completely derailed after it was revealed she had an intimate relationship with the top prosecutor on her team, and it could have tainted the case. Late last year, a judge dismissed the case in its entirety. It's important to point out, Sandra, that a judge typically would not just sign off on a warrant so the FBI could go on what's known as a fishing expedition. It's likely the FBI and DOJ presented some credible evidence to the judge for the judge to go ahead and give the green light. No immediate comment from the Justice Department. Again, the FBI confirming this court-authorized search warrant. We are waiting to see if perhaps Director Kash Patel, Attorney General Pam Bondi, or even Secretary Raffensperger, or perhaps Governor Brian Kemp have anything to say. We'll follow it.
And the search warrant listed 2 statutes and addressed the issue of probable cause. There was probable cause for a judge to sign off on it. The interesting thing is, the same people who say that Trump is wrong and false, he repeated false claims. Never have they said that Trump-Russia hoaxers. They've never stated that a journalist or a person or a pundit that repeated that Trump was. They actually, New York Times has an article. Trump was Putin's poodle. Okay, that's how absurd the hysteria was. Putin's poodle, as opposed to the puppet, Putin's puppet. And so they had like a fun time with different names and accusing Trump of things he never did. Never once did they say the false claims that Trump colluded with Russia. You'll never. That's why nobody trusts media. 70% of Americans don't trust media. And so the same people who said there's nothing, this is completely pristine and wonderful. And oh, by the way, don't really look at why we kicked Biden to the curbs politically after one debate performance after he won his primary. Everything's perfect. And how dare Trump? What's this? Oh, a search warrant. And you have President Trump, who is pretty much right almost all the time, linking Maduro to 2020. Let's continue.
Sandra?
Okay, David Spunt there in Washington on that for us. Keep us posted. David, thank you. Bill.
Thank you.
Well, Sandra, Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin has
This was something that not only altered geopolitics, okay, in the Western Hemisphere, because Cuba now might fall because they don't have Venezuelan oil. But also, if President Trump, according to these articles, is investigating, the DOJ and FBI and Tulsi Gabbard and intel agencies are investigating Maduro's link, then his arrest was potentially very important to finding out the possible truth. And when people say, oh, there's been an investigation, no, there hasn't, not one. If they say a recount, if the recount was done with overwhelming media pressure against any possibility of something, fraudulent being found, not really something that was above board. But anyway, let's continue.
Tomlinson live in West Palm Beach, where the commander-in-chief has been spending the holidays. And Lucas, you've had great coverage overnight here. What else are we learning about this operation?
Good morning, Griffin. A daring operation in the pre-dawn hours and 2 a.m. local in Caracas, 1 a.m. East Coast time. U.S. Special Operations Forces flew in from off the coast of Venezuela to snatch Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro and his wife. President Trump announcing the news on Truth Social a short time ago. I'll read it for our viewers. It says, quote, "The United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. Details to follow. There will be a news conference today at 11 a.m. at Mar-a-Lago. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump." And just before the assault force arrived at Maduro's compound, you can imagine the intelligence that U.S. intelligence agency had to have to know where to send the assault force to be able to locate and grab Maduro as well as his wife. You had numerous airstrikes throughout Caracas targeting Maduro's forces at a military base in Caracas as well as an air base, also Venezuela's largest port. And this is something President Trump has been threatening for months. It started with the drone strikes on the alleged drug boats in the Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific, over 24 to date, killing over 100 people. You saw it when U.S. forces seized, as a law enforcement matter, the oil tankers that the Trump administration said were associated with the Maduro regime. The goal is to cut off the drug and oil revenue stream for Nicolas Maduro. And for months, we've heard President Trump say that Maduro must go. And Maduro was very defiant, despite repeated threats from President Trump. Over 15 times, President Trump said he will be striking on land. Recall on Monday, we heard the president confirming that the CIA struck a target along the coast of Venezuela, destroying some of Maduro's drug boats. And again, this has been something that is not quite unprecedented. We saw in 1989 with the seizure of Manuel Noriega from Panama. This is something that the president wanted. We had not heard from President Trump, almost shades of Operation Midnight Hammer when those B-2s struck Iran. We haven't seen President Trump over the past 2 days. We heard from him on New Year's Eve. It was interesting. A reporter asked the president what his goal was for this coming year. He replied, peace. Well, for the President Nicolas Maduro, he didn't get that. Now, we did hear from Maduro yesterday, guys. He sounded like he was almost pleading in an interview done from a car, believe it or not, saying he was almost begging the Trump administration for a deal with oil. Of course, many American oil firms were kicked out of Venezuela decades ago. We've heard from President Trump in recent days saying he wants that oil back, and the company's in.
Well, and it's excuse me, pretty clear, Lucas, that the clock had run out for Nicolas Maduro to come to the table.
And by the way, it was Joe Biden's administration that had a $25 million reward. Joe Biden's administration. And as always, President Trump is cleaning up the mess from Biden. So Biden had the $25 million reward to arrest Maduro. Trump arrests Maduro. Of course, Democrats are upset.
Despite that interview that he did. Lucas, we're just getting a tweet this morning from Senator Mike Lee, who is saying just got off the phone with Secretary Rubio. He informed me that Nicolas Maduro has been arrested by U.S. personnel to stand trial on criminal charges in the United States.
And here's the issue. Okay, here's the issue. I'm not saying that he's going to get some kind of beautiful, amazing plea deal where, you know, he's not going to spend a while in prison. It could be the difference between a 10-year or a 30-year sentence, something along those lines. It could be the difference between a 15 or a 30-year sentence. And so if possibly, and say again, this is the Guardian. Okay, and the best thing about President Trump is he gets everyone who is completely apoplectic about his thought process. The New York Times, the Washington Post, BBC, The Guardian, The Atlantic, they will repeat what President Trump wants everyone to know. But they'll do so like, oh my God, did you hear what Trump said? And the average person's like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. That's what's been taking place the past 10 years. Trump, contrary to experts. And the average American's like, yeah, that makes sense. Maybe the experts are imbeciles. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe shutting down the U.S. economy was a bad thing. Oh, yeah, that probably was the stupidest thing we could ever have done. Because people still went to liquor stores, Costco. There were parties in blue states that were like, I don't want to say underground, but they were like, people did not stop congregating. That is one of the saddest and most pathetic, a reality that nobody has addressed. Okay, anyway, the point is there's a whole bunch of the experts, you can look at the experts getting us into the Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld people and their expertise, getting us into never-ending military conflict. And then here's the problem, ladies and gentlemen, the biggest problem with political analysis in this day and age, the biggest problem. Greenland, Biden, $25 million reward, and Trump arresting Nicolas Maduro. Other military endeavors President Trump is engaged in is not Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm going to say this very slowly. If there is a leftist pundit or a libertarian, which I respect libertarians a great deal, but it's not the same. The endless wars was what we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan under President Obama. That's endless wars. He had an endless campaign to take out an organization that he said was the JV, the junior varsity of another organization that his predecessor helped not create, but expand. And so that's endless wars. Endless wars is sending 2.5 million Americans and having them either patrol the streets, God forbid, of Caracas or of Tehran, God forbid, or any. See, you don't want to send Americans to counterinsurgency conflicts. I am against. That's what drives me for the past 9-10 years since I started becoming writing and becoming a content creator. Okay, that's my political philosophy. I want to gravitate towards the anti-war person. That's why I went from Bernie Sanders to President Trump. Because President Trump is actually anti-war. Bernie would just do whatever he was told. Just like when he said, oh, thank you, okay, I was cheated. Whatever you say. Oh, Russia, oh my God. Trump and Russia, oh. So, Greenland, purchasing Greenland because of the Golden Dome and because of the Greenland-Iceland UK gap and because of shipping routes is not Iraq and Afghanistan leftist pundit. Not counterinsurgency wars with IEDs. Very different. Trump is not a pacifist. He's the anti-war president when compared to Biden, for example, that allowed an endless war that doesn't have an end in sight right now. Hopefully Trump will fix it and find an end. Okay? The worst things take place when the adults, whatever you want to call it, the uniparty or whatever, the worst things take place. Invasions. Crimea was annexed when Obama was in office. Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, and it's unbelievable. The public relations spin. It's unbelievable. Anyway, now Bush is the normal Republican.
and that the kinetic action we saw tonight was deployed to protect and defend those executing the arrest warrant. This action likely falls within the president's inherent authority under Article 2 of the Constitution to protect U.S. personnel from an actual or imminent attack. It's interesting as we read that, Lucas, the vice president, Delcy Rodriguez of Venezuela, took earlier to state TV in Venezuela demanding proof of life of Maduro, but it's pretty apparent that it's unclear who is running that country right now. You're looking live at.
Again, he's not a pacifist. Okay, he's an American president, but he's an anti-war American president. His idea is tariffs. He uses tariffs the way other countries would use their militaries. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is why President Trump's claims are bolstered right here.
Breaking news. Now, President Biden's campaign effectively on hold. He's isolating in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, after testing positive for COVID-19. And after that news broke, Biden was seen, look at him there, walking gingerly down the small stairs of Air Force One, the same stairs he struggled to walk up just moments before. He went one step at a time, even pausing for breaks. But Biden's COVID diagnosis, that may not be his biggest concern. The calls for him to exit the race are back, and they are growing louder and louder. They're coordinated. Nancy Pelosi reportedly told Biden that he cannot beat Trump, and his persistence could destroy the party's chances of winning the House. And Senate Leader Chuck Schumer, someone for whom Biden has a ton of respect for, also House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, they said the same to him behind closed doors. And now it appears the pressure is mounting. Axios reporting that top Democrats believe Biden will exit the race.
Why would he exit the race if he won fair and square in 2020? Wouldn't he have enough political support from 81 million Americans? You don't lose 81 million Americans in terms of support that quickly. Okay, it's like being the most popular kid in school, and then suddenly, well, that could happen, you know, but not in terms of politics. Not in terms of politics. Politicians spend billions, and Democrats have received billions in free advertising, which are campaign donations. But politicians spend billions in terms of trying to earn or garner or create support. You get 81 million. President Trump got 77. I think he's second all time. Right? You get 81 million Americans to vote for you. How do you then get kicked out by your own political party? The smartest people in the room just simply expect everyone to accept this as normal. No problem. Yeah. He had. Well, do you have any evidence otherwise? No, there's no direct evidence now because you have made certain that the entire media pounces upon any speculation or investigation. So there were attempts at it, but never with the FBI. There's a difference between a recount and an investigation from local officials or county officials, and there's also a difference between a search warrant and the FBI. So Democrats said, "Oh, we need a search warrant and Mueller and millions of pages and everyone getting indicted for not even allegedly lying to an FBI official who was then again these officials were then fired for bias, kicked off the Mueller probe for bias, and it's so unbelievable." And so Democrats wanted the FBI involved. They wanted everybody involved with Trump Russia, but they don't want the FBI involved with Trump's claims regarding 2020. But now the FBI is involved. The NSA, or probably the CIA, and the FBI and the ODNI, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, is involved. So now we have an actual investigation, and we'll see if 81 million Americans actually did support Joe Biden. Do you believe that 81? Let's say you're a morally superior Democrat. You stumble upon this channel. I'm asking a question legitimately. Do you honestly believe that 81 million Americans admired this man in 2020? With Trump winning Ohio and Florida that day, which generally points to the incumbent victory. And if he genuinely had, and there was no widespread fraud. Of course, there was fraud, but not widespread. I mean, they always parse their words. It's hilarious. They're always in 24/7 deposition mode. Let's say he had 81 million Americans supporting him. How did he lose that support in less than 4 years? Americans are not that fickle. People are fickle, but not that in that manner. So my question is, did he have 81 million Americans supporting him? Because if he did, it makes no sense that he would be kicked out by his own political party. And again, the way Democrats think is, well, it's our business and nobody should care. And the way they think of the American public is the way they think of the Democratic electorate. Democrats will vote for Liz Cheney. If Biden was usurped by Liz Cheney, if they said, you know what, we need Liz Cheney. Cheney Waltz. That's a good ticket. Or they said Liz Cheney and Kinzinger. And Democrats, the most communist of communist leftists and socialists and Democratic socialists and Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders endorses Bernie Sanders endorse Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger for 2028 for the Democrats. And because I was told to, because they are not only former Republicans, but they protected the nation from deranged Trumpers with the select committee. And anyway, I was told by Debbie Wasserman that they should be the nominees, so I'll just go with it. You don't think I learned my lesson in 2016? It's like the Mamdani would vote for Liz Cheney and Kinzinger as the Democratic nominees, the candidate for president and vice president. But that's the way they work. The way the Democrats work is the American public should believe everything we say at all times because our electorate does. So why wouldn't they? And it's like, no, most people put two and two together. Like they were so into speculation and contacts in Russia, and that was complete conspiracy, mindless nonsense because they couldn't accept losing. But these are the same people who did that, but then say, oh my God, where's the proof? Like, well, where's the proof with Trump-Russia? You spent 10 years on that.
Possibly as soon as this weekend. And it's widely known that President Biden likes to start his day by watching MSNBC's Morning Joe. He's really close with Joe Scarborough. Well, here's what Biden likely watched as he was having his morning coffee.
It's really incumbent on people that are around Joe Biden to step up at this point and help the president.
Why? He won 81 million votes. Why would anyone do that? Unless Trump is right and there's a link to Maduro and a link to fraud and foul play. And
help the man they love and do the right thing.
The right thing would have been letting him continue. He won his primary. Unless they have fake and phony primaries, the Democrats. Oh, that's right.
This is not going to end well if it continues to drag out. The anger I hear are at the people that are keeping him in a bubble.
Or who have their own interests.
Or who may have their own interests.
Their own interest in wanting the incumbent that actually defeated Trump with 81 million votes? You mean those maniacal people? Oh my God!
Some financial in keeping him in the race. That is the real anger. And let me tell you, that's not just the anger from inside Congress. That is anger from inside his own political camp. And it is widespread. It is widespread. Joe Biden deserves better.
He deserves better to have people tell him that he should step down after he won his primary. He won the Democratic primary, and he also won 81 million, the support of 81 million Americans, and he deserves to be told to step down? What? Because of one debate performance? Oh, maybe it's more than that.
He deserves better than he is getting from those closest to him.
Want a front
Wow, that is the president's close friend. Guy, we're getting breadcrumbs of.
This was the past 10 years in American politics. From Bernie Sanders being cheated to Biden being kicked out to the Trump-Russia hoax perpetuated by the greatest sore losers in the history of mankind. To all this, don't bet against President Trump. You know, if you were somebody that went up against Trump, there's something almost certainly called the Trump curse. It's not real, but it's kind of real. Not really, kind of. If you devote your life to doing something to harm or hurt President Trump, it don't work out very well for you. It just doesn't. It just doesn't at all. You can look at the list of people fired, imprisoned, arrested, indicted, lost, billions in an election, Anyway, hit subscribe. I'll be doing upload videos at 9 and 12:30 every day. So just look at the channel, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, Paul Bartlett, thank you to my super chat. Thank you. The best thing you could do, ladies and gentlemen, is to make sure that you check the channel, H.A. Goodman and H.A. Goodman's other channel, throughout the day, especially when there's breaking news. But I will have 2 videos every morning and then 2 live streams every day, and then maybe some more depending. And then I'll have at least 2 or 4 videos on H.A. Goodman's other channel. Hit subscribe there. God bless you.